This is a episode, I guess, 0. This is a short informational episode about what this podcast is, what my vision is for it, and things like that, so you don't go into the very first interview blind. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Aaron Campbell. I am a freelance euphonium and trombone performer. I have my master's degree in euphonium performance, but my bachelor's degree in music education. And I teach lessons, I give recitals, I perform in bands and orchestras. I give talks on entrepreneurship and music and things like that. Just almost literally anything I can get my hands on that is going to be artistically fulfilling and also pay the bills. Now, my inspiration from this podcast actually came a lot from my students. I've only been doing this freelance thing for about 10 months, if that. And what I noticed as I kind of went through things and I first started teaching lessons a lot, that was a big chunk of my time, was teaching lessons. And if you are a lesson teacher out there, you know that you're working when most other people are not. So I'm at the house all by myself. Everybody else is out at their 9 to 5. The world's kind of silent, and I'm wondering, what am I going to do with this time? And yes, I can practice, which I do, and I did, and I do. But you know, we've only got so many chops, and we've only got so many things that we need to work on at a time. And so what else can I do? What do I have that can help people? So then it started the YouTube project. And then as I'm doing all this kind of stuff, I'm listening to these podcasts on my dreaded commute. And I'm doing all these things to kind of learn stuff. And I'm listening to these YouTube podcasts by guys like Rooster Teeth and Funhouse and Nerdist podcast. And they're all great. And they were really fun. And I've been listening to the Rooster Teeth podcast probably now for like 4 years. And as I'm getting more involved in this electronic media, I realized I was like, well, there's got to be a music one. There's got to be music ones that are fun and good. And there's a bunch of them. Ones that kind of fell into my lap for one reason or another was the the Pedal Note Media podcasts of the Brass Junkies and the Entrepreneurial Musician. Brass Junkies hosted by Lance LeDuc, and Andrew Hitz, Entrepreneurial Musician, hosted by Andrew Hitz. Those two were really good, and it pulled me into the direction of listening to the Per Service podcast and listening to a Musical Life podcast. And if you are listening to this one and you are not already subscribed and listening to those, I cannot suggest them anymore. These podcasts were the inspiration for this one. And if not for those, this wouldn't exist. And the only reason this one is going to become a little separate, because I'm going to be doing a lot of the same things that these other people are doing, but I want to focus my time and my efforts onto informing younger musicians. And I mean younger in the broadest sense that I can possibly mean that. You might have a degree in music already. You might be an 8th grader who's going into high school and you're thinking about music, and anywhere in between. And I want to help inform and break off some of the ideas of what a career in music is, and what it can be. What I learned from my students as I started kind of telling them about all these other podcasts I was listening to, and asking them, hey, are you interested in this? And they were like, yeah, it's cool, but I can't see myself ever doing that. A lot of these people, I guess my students, felt like they were very established before they started becoming entrepreneurs, which wasn't entirely true, admittedly, but that was the impression that my students had gotten. And so what I started to realize was that most of my high school students who believe that they're going to go and major in music, they feel like they have 2 career paths. They have majoring in music education, and they have majoring in music performance. And so they feel like they can become a band, choir, orchestra director, or that they can play in a professional orchestra or choir. And that's it. That's where they feel like they can line in. And there, as many of us know, that there's a bunch of other things, but it's understandable that it can be intimidating. And there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what all of this can be. So the idea behind this podcast is to find as many people who are doing awesome work, and in music, either on their own or working in a school or at a university or wherever they happen to be working, and get an idea of what they're doing, and get as many people involved as possible, so that somebody who is listening to this and is going, well, maybe I want to teach in school, and they hear 3 interviews with 3 music educators with 3 very different opinions on the job, they can hopefully make a more informed decision. And if you were just kind of getting into music, and you're kind of trying to figure out where you want to fit and what sounds interesting and cool to you, maybe from interview to interview, you might hear something that you've never heard about before, and it calls to you. However, this can be a resource for you, I hope it becomes that. It's also a really good excuse for me to force really awesome, intelligent people to sit down and talk with me. So there is that as well. And these people who I'm going to interview, like we said, they're going to be from all careers. They're going to be from all walks of life, and they're only going to be asked 3 main questions, really 4, but 3. Why do the job? What's awesome about this gig that you're doing? And subsequently also the antithesis of why not do the job? What's wrong with this job? What's the thing that keeps people away? How did you get started, and how would you suggest somebody who's younger get started? And then the last one, which is always kind of a fun one. I've already done a couple of these interviews. People don't realize yet. But I have asked, and I've liked the answers I'm starting to get, is what would you tell yourself when you were starting? You're talking to your 19-year-old self, and what would you say to them? You just shake them and be like, don't worry about this thing. And then the last one, which is a total steal from Andrew Hitz, but I don't think he would mind if he heard that I'm doing this, because I feel like he believes that in good work, and I feel like this is a thing, and this is the ultimate form of flattery, and that is, what resources would you suggest? Be it a podcast, be it a CD, be it a website or a book or a movie, I don't know, anything that this changed my life in one way or another. And which all of these things and anything that they give us and any of their websites and all that kind of stuff, I will have show notes on my website, AKCEuph.com, AKCEuph. And with those show notes, we will also have links to any of the resources that they give as well. So you'll always, anything that we talk about, you'll be able to grab off of AKCEuph.com. So let's talk about the frequency of episodes. I am going to release 2 episodes a month every Monday. The episodes will be released first thing Monday morning, probably around 8 a.m., and we will do this in sort of seasons. So what I'm going to do is I will be doing 12 episodes straight. And after those 12 episodes, I'm going to take a month off and then start publishing episodes again. What that month off allows me to do is to bulk up on more interviews, allow time for me to get a hold of people, and also just allow me to take a mental break and take a step back from the interviews and see, okay, what's working, what's not working, who would we really like to see, what haven't we seen yet, and things like that. And I want to do this podcast once a week. I really do. But right now we do not have the resources to do so. And if I see a growing popularity and this thing is just kicking butt, then it will be out. And then I am waiting for the audience to force my hand to where I have no choice but to do an episode every single Monday. So speaking of resources and things like that, you can help. You can help this. We're going to start off with ways you can help is if you feel like you have something to say for this podcast, please contact me. If you think that you would be a great interview, you think you have something to say to younger people, younger musicians, or or you know somebody who might be a great influence for people, drop me an email or tweet or anything. Just get a hold of me, and we'll talk about how in a moment. But get a hold of me and let me know. Tell me the best way to get a hold of you or whoever it is that you think would be a good idea, and what you can give to the audience of this podcast. The other way you can help is the more obvious ones: the sharing, the liking, the reviews, the subscribing, telling your friends by word of mouth. Anything you can do to get this thing out and spread out. The larger the viewership, well, I guess I have a YouTube page too, so I'm used to viewerships. The larger the listening base is, the larger our outreach is, and the larger and the we can be. And so the more people I can talk to, and the further out we can go in terms of being able to pull people in for interviews, and the things we can do. I hope in the long term to get as many people as I possibly can who are doing awesome things. But I also hope to do things like live panels and Q&As and do these things all over the United States or even all over the world, to talk about what I've learned from all these people. And the larger we can get in terms of who is listening to this, the easier that becomes. So let's talk about the last way you can help, which is financial. If you go to my website, there is a link to my Patreon, as well as if you just go to Patreon and search for my name, you're going to find it. It's not hard to get a hold of. And you can go in there and check it out, and there are different incentives for whatever it is you do. But what Patreon does is you can pledge a certain amount of money, $1 to gazillion dollars, whatever you want. And every time I post a podcast, that money comes out of your bank account. So you pledge $1, $2 a month. And it does a few things. First off, it helps me with the overhead. It helps me grow this podcast. It helps me get better equipment and go out to be able to interview other people or even come to you. It helps me do all those things. But the other thing that it does is it also incentivizes. The more, once it gets to a point where I realize that I can double up the amount of money and funding for this podcast, once I double up the lessons, all of a sudden we're going to start to see more lessons and more content. And maybe we can bring in more people to work on this podcast, and it can become a team and not just myself. I don't know where this could go. I'm excited to see where it could, but a lot of that could be done with your help and just doing those few things. So please go and share this and tell people about it. And just spread the word that we're trying to do something awesome here. Go and comment and like and subscribe, whatever it is that medium in which you're listening to this on, be it on iTunes or Android or on YouTube. And then if you can, and if you are in a place where you can, please donate, and donate for the amount of time that you can. And if your financial situation changes, you can pull and you can back out. You're not going to break my heart or hurt my feelings. I understand. So with that, I'll say it again. Welcome to the Young Musician's Guide. I'm so stoked about getting this project off the ground. I've already done a couple of these interviews, and I could not be more excited for what we're going to get and who we're going to see and hear from, and who I get to talk to, and the fun things that I'm going to hear about. Thank you in advance for all of your support in making this happen. If you have any questions for me, please get a hold of me. If you go to my website, AKCEuph.com, there is literally a link to everything. And if you can't find that website, use AKCEuph on your given social media platform, and you will find me. And reach out and say you want to hear from someone, or you have somebody. Reach out and tell me how we can do this better. Let's create a community around this. Again, I'm your host, Aaron Campbell, and I am so excited to post the first real episode. You all have a great